Good morning, Westeros, and welcome to this little video I'm putting together to go along with House of the Dragon Season 3. For those of you that might not know me, I'm Nelson from the Morning Throners podcast. Normally we do a chapter-by-chapter book podcast on the Song of Ice and Fire books. We're about a quarter of the way through Dance with Dragons at the moment. This video is going to be on House of the Dragon, specifically the family tree of the Targaryens associated, trying to catch everybody up, make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of who's alive, who's dead, who's related to who, because once you see the family tree, you'll realize it's kind of complicated. I think the first thing I'm going to do real quick is show a quick timeline of Season 1. I know we're on Season 3. Season 2 all takes place in the course of about 2 or 3 months, so Season 1 is really where the timeline jumps happen and a lot of the family tree changes actually take place. So let's pull up the timeline real quick. All right, so what we're looking at here is a little timeline I made just for personal use, really, back when House of the Dragon Season 1 came out. I never did anything with it. I was thinking about making some videos. I never did. Let me know in the comments if you guys kind of want me to go over this more. The point of this was originally to compare events of Fire and Blood, so I went through Fire and Blood and put a bunch of things that I thought would be important on the timeline when they happen in Fire and Blood, and then I put those same things down on the timeline for House of the Dragon. The main thing I want to show here is we're not going to go through each of these points. The main thing I want to show here is while Fire and Blood's kind of evenly spaces a lot of these events out, House of the Dragon obviously can't do that because everything has to take place during an episode, and episodes can't always be spaced out. So if you recall back in House of the Dragon Season 1, there was a lot of jumping around. So if we look here, the very first scene took place in 101. It was a big council in Harrenhal. Viserys kind of becomes king off screen most of Season 1. So I guess I'll show the color codes here are each episode. So the main thing, and again, you can slow this down and pause and read some of it if you care to. But the main thing here I'm trying to show is that each of these color codes you'll see kind of has big jumps in between. So when we look at the family tree, it'll be easy to kind of take places, screenshots in between certain episodes where some of these big time jumps happen. So for episode 1 in Season 1, it kind of takes place mostly in around 112. You can see episode 2 around the same time. Anything in white is something that happens off screen, and anything in yellow is something that happens differently or doesn't happen in the show that does happen in the books. So episode 3, again, that we've jumped about 5 years before episode 3. If you remember, this is when Alicent all of a sudden has a son. About a year jump between episode 4 and 5. This is where the marriage for Laenor happens. Then there's a big time jump. This is when we get the older actors. This is about 10 years, I think, for episode 6 and 7. They take place around the same time. Another big time jump for the last 3, 8, 9, 10. This is when Viserys dies and the Green Council and Black Council ending with the death of Lucerys. So this is the timeline for Season 1. Like I said, it's a little bit more spaced out for the books. I have a little chart here of characters' ages. Again, not going to go through all of this, but I'll show it real quick in case anybody wants to pause and take a look. I had made this at the end of Season 1. Haven't really gone back to double check everything, so some of these might be slightly off. Definitely leave comments if you guys see any mistakes I made, because I like to keep this stuff up to date. I did start trying to keep track of a timeline similar for House of the Dragon Season 2. I didn't actually do the Fire and Blood half yet, but Season 2, like I said, because it all takes place over just 2 or 3 months, it kind of just became me putting down what happens in what episodes, because it's kind of hard to see where timeline differences are happening. But this might be more useful once I lay out the timeline for Fire and Blood, because we do have a pretty detailed timeline there. Sometimes we know what day of the month things are happening, so I might come back and do a comparable thing like I did to 1. And also at the time of making this video, Season 3 has come out and the first episode has, so I will update the timeline with that. So I guess I'll mention now, there will be spoilers for episode 1 of Season 3. The family tree that I'm going to be showing will be up till the end of episode 1 of Season 3. So, all right, let's jump into the family tree then. Okay, so what we're looking at here is pre-Season 1, episode 1. So this is where things stand before House of the Dragon really kicks off. Jaehaerys is king. He's the king who we see in that council at the beginning of episode 1. A lot of his children are dead, hence the succession crisis, right? Viserys and Rhaenys, the two on the third tier, are the candidates, right? Viserys is the one who becomes winning. And I'm putting so yellow, I guess I'll explain what the different things mean. The background color of each person is kind of indicating their family. So all the Targaryens are this lightish red. I can't make it the dark red or it's hard to read the names. Baratheon, yellow. Valyrian's teal. Aaron's blue. The circles, red circle indicates that person is dead. Yellow circle indicates that person is king or crowned. It'll get complicated once Rhaenyra and Aegon are both going at it. And the purple circle is who's heir. Right now, the purple circle is not on anyone because pre-season 1, episode 1, they're having the council to determine who should be heir. Mainly, it's between Viserys and Rhaenys. We know Viserys wins. All right, so like I said, on the timeline, between the beginning of episode 1 and the ending of episode 1, there's actually about a 12-year jump. So this update, we're looking to the family tree, is about 12 years later, but it's still only the end of one episode. What's really happened in between here, you can see Laena's born. In the book, she would have already been born before the Great Council, but they changed some ages. Laena's born. Jaehaerys dies. The king, obviously, right? Viserys is now king. Rhaenyra is named heir at the very end of episode 1. And also in episode 1, Aemma Arryn dies. She gives birth to Baelon, who also dies very shortly after. So that's the update to this family tree for episode 1. This next update will take us to the start of episode 3. Like I mentioned, by the start of episode 3, Viserys has now married Alicent and they've had a child, Aegon. So those are the 2 updates here. Next update will take us to the end of episode 5. Right, this is right before the time jump. The big time jump. The main update here is that Laenor has married Rhaenyra, and also Daemon has killed his wife, Rhea Royce, right? We saw that. Side update, Helena's born. I think this happens off screen. Okay, so this next one, this is the start of episode 6, but this is the big time jump. So we're like 10 years later, we got the actor changes. So what's happened here? Daemon has married Laena. Again, this is where the timeline really starts getting confusing. Oh, somewhere in here I took off Jaehaerys. So you'll notice as the timeline gets more confusing, I'm taking off the higher layers and focusing on the lower generations. The confusing part here is Daemon, because Rhea Royce is now dead. He is remarried to Laena. So he's actually on the family tree twice. The dotted outline box for Daemon indicates that this is like a second copy of him on the family tree. He's really up top because he's brothers to Viserys. So, but right now he has married Laena, and in the time jump, they've had the twins, Baela and Rhaena. At the very end, right, Rhaenyra had married Laenor. At this point, they have also had 2 children. I say this is at the start of episode 6. You remember, episode 6 starts with Rhaenyra giving birth. So Joffrey is being born at the very beginning of episode 6. The only other update here is that Aemon and Daeron were born during this 5-year jump. So Aegon and Helena were born. Now Aemon and Daeron also are. So Viserys and Alicent had their 2 other children. We don't actually see Daeron at all in season 1 or 2. I think we're probably going to start seeing him in these upcoming episodes of season 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, but he was born at this time. All right, jumping ahead about a year or so to the end of episode 7, Laena has died. Laenor has died. So Rhaenyra and Daemon get married. So that's the big update here. You see Laenor and Laena now have the red circles. They're dead. And you see Daemon on the family tree for a 3rd time with another orange line. I guess I never said orange line indicates who someone's married to. So now Daemon is on here as married to Rhaenyra as well. Obviously no longer married to Laena because she is dead. Jumping ahead again here, this is another pretty big time jump. Even though it's just in between the end of episode 7 and the start of episode 8, we get like a 5-year time jump. So that's what's going on. The updates to this one, Rhaenyra and Daemon have had 2 children, Aegon and Viserys. You see them down there. Aegon and Helena have gotten married and had 2 children, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera. Again, not major focuses. None of these children are major focuses, but this has happened. I think in episode 8 is when Rhaenyra introduces one of the children to Viserys, maybe Viserys, because I think he says a name for a king. But yep. So just the marriage of Aegon and Helena and the children for Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Aegon and Helena. From here, we can pretty much jump to the end of season 1, because like I said, episodes 8, 9, and 10 for season 1 all take place in like the course of a week or so. And in that time, Viserys dies, which is what kind of shakes everything up, right? So Viserys dies. When Rhaenyra learns of that, she is pregnant, and it kind of causes the stillbirth of her daughter Visenya to Daemon. So you have a new daughter, but she's already dead. We also get the confusingness of there are new 2 people crowned. Both Rhaenyra and Aegon get crowned in those last 3 episodes. So you have 2 kings or 2 rulers at this point. So 2 yellow circles, which then implies 2 heirs. So you have 2 purple circles, Jace and Jaehaerys for each of them. The only other big update here is Luke dies, right? That's the very end of season 1, episode 10. So this Rhaenyra's second son has died. All right, so from there, we'll jump into season 2, which should go a lot faster because I think there's really only 1 or 2 times that this tree gets updated at all. Okay, so I guess one quick thing to note is I removed the highest generation again to clean things up a little bit. So it's not shown anymore, but Rhaenys is cousins to Viserys and Daemon. I think Emma Arryn is as well, but that is no longer shown. Not really important. But yeah, so that's on there. So this is where we are at the end of season 2, episode 1. And really the only thing that's happened that updated this is Blood and Cheese. So Daemon had sent Blood and Cheese to go kill the son, a son for a son, ended up killing Jaehaerys, Aegon and Helena's son, which makes Aemon the heir. You'll notice there's a new person on here who's not actually in the show, Maelor, and I put a blue box around him to symbolize that he's not in the show. This is something that we're not going to linger on it, but this is something that George was kind of upset that they cut this character out, and I'm not going to get on a soapbox of why I think it's important that they cut the character out or why there could be problems, but just the one thing is, look who is now Aegon's heir. It becomes Aemond when in the books it should be Maelor. He is a very young child, but still it should be Maelor, not Aemond, so that's just one thing that it throws off. Maelor is going to stay on the family tree from here on out, but just the blue box, no, he's not in the show. Okay, so there's really only one more update to this family tree in season 2, and that's after Rook's Rest when Rhaenys dies. So up in the top left, you can see Rhaenys now has the red circle. She is dead. Aegon's also very injured, so Aemon is ruling, but Aegon is technically still alive and king, so no updates to the colored circles there. All right, so if you have not seen season 3, I would stop watching here because this next update is going to be the only update for season 3 so far. It's going to be the end of episode 1. Switching to that now. And again, pretty small update. The only thing here is Jaehaerys has died. I just now noticed I don't have Jaehaerys' last name on there, but he's a Valyrian like all the rest. You can see because of the background. The other thing I threw on here is I added that Joffrey, Aegon, and Viserys are all in Pentos. That, again, is slightly different than how... they were sent to Pentos. We don't know if they've got there or not. Slightly different than how it works in the books. Not going to go into it. But this is where the family tree sits currently. So you can kind of see who's related to who. Daemon, I think, is probably the thing that makes this the most complicated because he's married to 3 different people, children with 2 of them. So things get weird there. But yeah, feel free to take a screenshot of this and refer back to it at any point during the episodes if you're trying to remember how people are related or who's up next in terms of line of succession. And feel free to leave me a comment if anybody has any suggestions or notes anything I got wrong. I like to keep these things up to date and accurate if I can. So, cool. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.